are the drawbacks. Here's why Oprah would probably not win if she ran. One, she's wildly inexperienced. Now, that doesn't hold a lot of stock anymore. In the last two presidents have had no experience, basically, entering high office. Donald Trump had legitimately no experience entering high office. Oprah's run her own business in the way Trump has. It's going to be hard for him to say you have no experience when he had no experience. She is far left. Her politics will become an issue here. Now, she wants to run as great uniter. I'm the person who everybody agrees is emotionally connected. That doesn't hold once you start running. Once you start running, you become a polarizing political figure pretty quickly, and she is pretty far to the left. She endorsed Obama in the 2008 primaries. It probably helped him win the primaries over Hillary Clinton. She traveled to Denmark in 2009 and openly praised socialism. She's compared Trayvon Martin to Emmett Till, okay, which is, again, just insane. She's a pro-choice advocate. She's made statements in the past like there have been millions of lynchings in the United States, which, of course, isn't true. About 4,000 lynchings, as far as I'm aware, which, of course, is terrible. But then she's suggested a connection between the time of lynchings and now, right, by comparing Emmett Till to Trayvon Martin. Nobody thinks of Oprah as political, but those politics will jump to the fore pretty quickly as soon as she starts running. She also is kind of kooky. I mean, people say that Trump is a conspiracy theorist. Oprah's kind of a kook. Okay, I know everybody wants to bury that, but aside from her various weight loss theories, she hosted Jenny McCarthy on vaccines numerous times. She pushed, if you recall, the new age silliness of The Secret, which was this idea that through the power of positive thinking, you could heal yourself. And then it became a national scandal when one woman who had cancer said, I'm going to use the power of positive thinking to heal my cancer. It did not work. It was a fail. Right? She went out and defended the fraudster James Frey, as you recall. There was a major scandal for her. She pushed nonsense about the meat industry that had the meat industry actually suing her. So, look, Trump is a conspiracy theorist too in a lot of ways. But the difference is that Trump is already so filled with mud, right? He's covered with mud. He's a mud monster. That throwing more mud on Trump doesn't do him any damage. Oprah is considered this sort of angelic character. And that means that if you throw mud at an angel, the spots are more likely to show on the dress. Right, so that there are also scandals that are going to hit her as well. So every person has scandals in their past. Oprah has some pretty bad ones. The worst one was in 2009. Her school that she runs in Johannesburg, South Africa, the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy School for Girls, it was hit with a sex scandal, a sexual abuse scandal, actually two of them in 2 years. So in 2009, there was a series of students who were sexually abused by other students. The year before, there was a matron who allegedly sexually abused 15 girls. Right, she actually fought back by firing the headmistress and all the matrons and giving the girls her cell phone number. But there will be digging into how much did she know? Was she fully aware of it at the time? Right? The story sort of went away because she took the right measures. But scandals hurt everyone. If they hurt Mitt Romney, they certainly hurt Oprah Winfrey. Finally, Oprah versus Trump. Oprah would end up school-marming Trump a lot. Right? She'd end up doing a lot of what Hillary Clinton did. She'd end up standing there going, tutting him for his baseness and his cruelty. It didn't work well for Hillary. Now, Oprah doing it might be more successful, but I'm not sure school-marming works against Trump in any case. So before everybody gets over the moon about Hillary for president, I think there's some real holes in that particular theory. I also think that the Democrats are probably going to nominate somebody who's more akin to Joe Biden. Okay, meanwhile, putting aside the Golden Globes now, let's talk about President Trump's tweets. So over the weekend, President Trump had a lot to say about this book, right? So over the weekend, there's a lot to say for President Trump about this Michael Wolff book, Fire and Fury. We'll talk about that in just a second. But for the discussion of very stable geniuses and Stephen Miller on CNN, you're going to have to go over to dailywire.com right now and subscribe. For $9.99 a month, you can have a subscription to dailywire.com. When you get that subscription, you get the rest of this show live. You get to be part of my mailbag on Fridays. You will also get discounts from the soon-to-becoming Shapiro store. You will get the rest of Michael Knowles' show. You'll get the rest of Andrew Klavan's show. You'll get all of those glories for $9.99 a month. For $99 a year, a significant discount from the monthly fee. Time to get the wheels turning and the keyboards humming. On Tuesday, January 16th at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, we'll be doing our 5th episode of The Conversation, featuring the Daily Wire's own Andrew Klavan, moderated by our own host, Alicia Krause. Subscribe today. Be part of the conversation. Ask Drew those live questions, which he will answer for everyone to hear. Make your life better in every conceivable way. Drew's Conversation will stream live on the Daily Wire Facebook page and the Daily Wire YouTube channel. It'll be free for everyone to watch. Only subscribers get to ask the questions. To ask questions as a subscriber, you log into our website, dailywire.com. You head over to the Conversation page to watch the live stream. After that, if you just start typing into the Daily Wire chat box, Drew will answer questions as they come in for an entire hour. Once again, subscribe to get your questions answered by Drew on Tuesday, January 16th, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, and join the conversation. Andrew Klavan this time. You get all of those things, and you get this extra goodie, the Leftist Tears Hot or Cold Tumbler, the greatest of all beverage vessels. Yes, greater than any beverage vessel that was held at the Golden Globes last night. It is phenomenal. And you get all of those things for $99 a year. You just want to listen later, head over to SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We always appreciate it. We put up videos every day pretty much that you won't see anywhere else. So check that out at our YouTube channel. We are the largest, fastest growing conservative podcast in the nation. Alrighty, so the big controversy over the weekend is that the Michael Wolff book about Donald Trump was making the rounds. The reason it was making the rounds, the new case against Trump, is not that he's a Russian colluder, it's that he's a nut job. Now, let's be frank about this. This has been a case against Trump for at least several years. Right? That Donald Trump is not the most mentally stable human. And if you follow his Twitter feed, I'm not going to lie to you, he doesn't look like he is emotionally centered, shall we put it that way. Right? He's not exactly a practitioner of the art of the Tao. Right? He's not somebody who, with a Buddhist sense of passivity. And Donald Trump is a guy who sounds off a lot, and he's very volatile, and everybody knows this. And there's a lot of talk in this Michael Wolff book about how Trump is actually a crazy person, right? How he's actually mentally unstable. Well, Trump decided to fight back against this in the most stable possible way. He went on Twitter and mouthed off about it. Here's what he said, quote, "Now that Russian collusion, after 1 year of intense study, has proven to be a total hoax on the American public, the Democrats and their lapdogs, the fake news mainstream media, are taking out the old Ronald Reagan playbook and screaming mental stability and intelligence." And he continues along these lines. He says, "Actually, throughout my life, my two greatest assets have been mental stability and being, like, really smart." The like is actually in there. I'm not making that up. It says being, comma, like, comma, really smart. "Crooked Hillary Clinton also played these cards very hard and, as everyone knows, went down in flames. I went from a very successful businessman to top TV star." And then he continues, "to President of the United States, in parentheses, on my first try." Technically not his first try. He ran for the Reform Party nomination, I believe, in 2000. He says, I think that would qualify as not smart, but genius, and a very stable genius at that." Okay, a few comments on this. If you are trying to demonstrate that you are a very stable genius, you should not tweet like this. You should not. The funniest thing I saw about this was that somebody tweeted out a picture of Mr. Ed with the caption, "Stable Genius." I like puns. Solid work. But here's the problem. If you want to show that you're smart and you deserve respect, you should not go full Fredo in Godfather 2 and demand respect.
"I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb. I'm smart and I want respect."
Yeah, and that's sort of everybody's reaction, right? Michael's reaction there is pretty much the reaction shot for everybody after Trump tweets all of that. Now, you can talk about whether you think he's stable. You can talk about whether you think he's qualified to be president. You can talk about all the good things that have happened under Trump. And I agree with all the good things that have happened under Trump. If I've not been clear about that, I really like the last 8 weeks of policy, particularly. But if you want to show that you are actually a very stable genius, do not channel Fredo. It's just not a bright thing to do. Like, advice to President Trump, please, for the love of God, put down the phone. Just put it down. You know what would convey that you're a very stable genius? Putting down the phone. Putting it down. Like now. Put it down. I feel like I'm talking to my 1.5-year-old son. Put down the pone. Right? He calls it a pone. Put down the pone. Okay, just stop. When he does this, it is not helpful. The reason that it's particularly unhelpful is because right now he's trying to fight back all of these allegations, and not just that. You know, there are a lot of people on my side of the aisle, on the conservative side, who will say, listen, who cares how he acts? All that cares is what gets done. The reason people are considering Oprah Winfrey for president is because of how she acts, not because of what they think she's going to get done. The reality is what we perceive the presidential election to be, who we perceive the president to be, is what Trump evidences in his tweets, not what he does in his policy. We can justify his presidency to ourselves by talking about all the things he does in policy. And that's great. That's how I see the presidency in my dreams, right? The presidency should be about the policies that you promulgate. But that's not what exactly people see the presidency as. They see the presidency as the stuff you say, and Trump is saying silly, silly things. And not just that, he then activates Stephen Miller to go out on CNN. Now, Stephen Miller had some words to say about Steve Bannon. I agree with all of his words. He calls Steve Bannon grotesque. Agreed. He calls Steve Bannon ridiculous. Agreed. Right? And I know Steve Miller, right? I know Stephen Miller. I think Stephen is a very knowledgeable guy, particularly about immigration. But on TV, he is just television poison. He is just bad on TV. If you want Stephen Miller to basically go after Steve Bannon, a statement from Stephen Miller, a public statement from Stephen Miller, released as a video, would have been much better. Instead, he goes at it with Jake Tapper. And here's the problem. When I agree with what you're saying, and I'm still criticizing how you're saying it, it might be a problem with how you're saying it. So Stephen Miller goes on with Tapper, and he refuses to answer any simple questions, which he could. right? I could have done a better job ripping on Bannon in this interview than Miller does. Miller goes out there, and instead he just devotes 12 minutes to making a fool of himself, and it's just not useful. It's just not good. And then he ends up being escorted from the CNN headquarters by security. If you're trying to evidence that you guys are all very stable geniuses, no, just no. Here's some of this. Now, I know that Trump tweeted out that he loves this. I know that Trump tweeted out that he thinks that this was just a great performance by Stephen Miller. It was not. Okay, here, I will show you.
With respect to the Trump Tower meeting that he's talking about, he wasn't even there when this went down, so he's not really a remotely credible source on any of it. It reads like an angry, vindictive person spouting off to a highly discreditable author. The book is best understood as a work of very poorly written fiction. And I also will say that the author is a garbage author of a garbage book. A phenomenon was happening that you didn't see, a phenomenon was happening that the rest of the political class didn't see. All these so-called political geniuses in Washington, whether it be at the big lobbying firms or
the only person who's called himself a genius in the last week is the president. But
which happens to be a true statement.
Okay.
A self-made billionaire who revolutionized reality TV and who has changed the
Okay, this is where it goes off the rails. If you just want to say that the book is just a grotesque, if you want to just say the book is fiction, that's fine. But this whole we got to go on TV and we got to treat the president like he's Kim Jong-un, or we're going to go around worshiping, we're actually going to get out a prayer rug and just bow down to Trump. He is a genius. He's the only one who is a genius. He beat 17 other candidates, blah, blah, blah. Come on. Okay, like, if you think this is helpful to Trump's prospects in 2020, you got another thing coming. Okay, in a second, we're going to get to some things I like and some things that I don't. You know what, let's just do it. Okay, time for some things I like, some things I hate, and then we'll do some Federalist Papers. So, things I like. Over the weekend, I got to see Jumanji. It is fun. Okay, it's not Citizen Kane. It's not meant to be Citizen Kane. It is very funny. I was actually kind of shocked that they didn't use The Rock in more comedic ways. The people who are actually funny in this film are Jack Black and Kevin Hart. Jack Black is very funny. He basically, the basic premise of the film is that there are these 4 teenagers who entered the game Jumanji. If you remember the original Jumanji, it was the opposite, right? It was Robin Williams pops out of the game, and so do all the animals, and it's freaking out the kids. And I remember it was pitched as a kid-friendly film, the original Jumanji. And when I saw it, and I was like 8, it freaked the living crap out of me. Right, it's an actual very freaky film. This one is obviously pitched to people who are like 16 years old, 15 and up. So it is PG-13, and it should be PG-13. So in any case, here is a little bit of the preview.
Spencer, Bethany, Fridge, Martha, you're all here for a reason.
Hey, person walking.
You should be thinking about who you are and who you want to be. You'll have plenty of time to figure that out while you're cleaning out the basement.
Are you gonna help, or are you too pretty?
I'm too pretty.
Yo, what's this?
A game for those who seek to find a way to leave their world behind. Jumanji. You pick a character, and you're that person in the game.
Which one do I pick?
I don't think it matters that much.
Moose Finbar. Sounds like a badass.
I'll be the curvy genius.
Dr. Smolder Bravestone.
Guess I'm Ruby Roundhouse.
Okay, and then of course it's not spoiling anything, but the funny thing is the characters they inhabit. So the big black football player ends up being Kevin Hart, right, tiny, and the nerd ends up being Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and then of course the big surprise is that the hot blonde chick ends up being Jack Black, right, and so the entire film Jack Black is basically channeling a teenage girl, and it is quite funny. So the movie is really enjoyable. I saw it with my wife. It's a good way to lose a couple of hours. It's got its moments. It definitely has its moments. I always feel this with comedies. It's very rare I see a comedy and I feel like they couldn't have gotten a little bit more from it, but you get enough from it that you're pretty pleased with it. So it's pretty funny. So check it out, Jumanji, worth seeing. Dwayne The Rock Johnson only makes films that are funny and interesting. Actually, I have to say I've become a big fan of The Rock. Okay, I will even watch Central Intelligence and think that's a good movie because I think that Dwayne The Rock Johnson is a very funny human. Okay, so check that out. Okay, other things. You know what? I want to spend some time on the Federalist Papers here, so I'm just going to skip right over things I hate. Guess what? Too bad. Okay, so let's talk Federalist Papers. The reason I want to spend some extra time today is because this is one of the more important Federalist Papers. Every week we do a Federalist paper. Today we are on Federalist number 10. This is one of the most famous. This one is by James Madison. This is the one where he talks about how the organization of the Constitution of the United States helps defeat the power of faction. So what he says is, by a faction, I understand a number of citizens, whether amounting to a majority or a minority of the whole, who are united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or of interest adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent aggregate interests of the community. So what he says, basically, a faction is any political group of people organizing against another group of people or organizing against a future interest. He says there are two methods of curing the mischiefs of faction. The one by removing its causes, the other by controlling its effects. There are again two methods of removing the causes of factions. The one by destroying the liberty which is essential to its existence, the other by giving to every citizen the same opinions, the same passions, and the same interests. So here's what he says. He says, basically, if you want to stop factions from tearing a society apart, stop the majority from hurting the minority, or the minority from hurting the majority, there are only two ways of doing that. The one is to get rid of the causes of faction, so make everybody think the same way. The other is by controlling its effects. If you want to get rid of everybody thinking differently, the only way to do that is by getting rid of liberty on the one hand, or by giving every citizen the same opinions, the same passions, and the same interests through training. He says that the getting rid of the causes is a fool's errand. And he says, if you destroy liberty, that's worse than the disease. He says, liberty is to faction what air is to fire, an ailment without which it instantly expires. He says that getting rid of liberty is like getting rid of air because you want to get rid of bad animals. You get rid of all animals. He says that also having everybody agree is unwise. He says as long as the reason of man continues fallible and he has liberty to exercise it, different opinions will be formed. And as long as the connection subsists between his reason and his self-love, his opinion and his passions will have a reciprocal influence on one another, and the former will be objects to which the latter will attach themselves. In other words, what he's saying is, even if you could try to reason everybody to the proper solutions, people